Hello and welcome to that 90s Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, James Tunstall, and today we've got a very special guest, someone I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while. Been an admirer of his in-ring work, and now he's worked behind the scenes. He's a former two-time WWE Tag Team Champion, the one and only TJ Wilson, or as most people know him as Tyson Kidd. How you doing, TJ?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Finally out of lockdown, and the world's starting to return to normal just a bit.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Go. And I mean, you've been getting a lot of praise lately on the internet with your producing work at WrestleMania for the women's main event. So how did it feel for yourself, like producing, night one of the main event and watching these two women like tear the house down?
I mean, it's always very cool and special to see, like, with what I do now behind the scenes, where we kind of, it's cool to have an idea and then to see it come to fruition and kind of come to life in 3D. It's a very cool thing on every level. So when it's the main event of WrestleMania, I mean, it's almost indescribable. And I'm definitely never gonna sit around and take credit for other people's work. But it was a fun process, and it was a hell of a performance to watch and to be a part of, even a small part of it or whatever part of it I was. It was very cool to experience the entire thing from start to finish. It was very exhilarating and a thrilling, fun ride from, like I said, from start to finish.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a crazy coincidence because, I mean, we'll go into your ECW run later, but one of your first matches in ECW was against Fit Finlay, and during the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, he was the man behind the women's movement during them days. So it's weird how you've picked up the mantle for today's women's wrestlers.
And even, I mean, if you really, really want to, I mean, Fit obviously worked very, even to this day, obviously, but very closely with Natty for a very long time. But when I debuted on ECW, my debut, Fit is my producer that day. So really, it really goes full circle. And he had a big part in my early success in WWE and on ECW specifically. I was a little not under the microscope, but getting a little, like, I guess, scrutinized that when I first got called up, that my stuff was a little too pretty, too smooth, I think. And Fit was the guy that helped me out. I wrestled in my first loop of live events against Fit, and I remember we had that first match, and I didn't know what he thought yet. I hadn't seen him backstage after, and it was intermission. And he was also the producer of the show. It was a live event, and I just was nervous. I was nervous because this had now been 3 weeks on the main roster, and I kept getting in trouble. Like I said, my stuff was being said it was too smooth, and I needed to be a bit more gritty. And and I mean, Fit can do any style, but he really can be gritty. So I thought we had, like, what felt like a very good match, but it matters what his opinion says. If he thought it wasn't a good match, and it wasn't a good match, doesn't matter what I thought. So I'm waiting for him, and then he had a lot of praise, and like then he like kind of went to bat for me, I think, on my behalf, and kind of spoke to Vince about that he personally wrestled me, so he knew my ability, and we've had a great relationship. I mean, even prior to that, but really ever since, we really have, like, this entire time. So it's kind of funny that how things work out.
Awesome. And I mean, back to WrestleMania, it was a great event, but how great was it for yourself and for everyone in the back, and obviously for the men and women wrestling, the fact that you had fans back into the stadium?
It was crazy. The whole thing was crazy. Like that it started with the big presentation, and then a 30-minute delay. Like, no, like, this can't be real. Like, it was crazy. That was so crazy. But the truth is, like, what other way could it have possibly gone down? It kind of had to go that way. It had to be this little start and then almost a 30-minute delay. Like, of course. So it just goes with what's been happening in the world. So it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the highlights was the fact that I suppose it was all chaos and he was just running around. He wants to cut a promo for a few minutes, so it must have been just crazy, just trying to find people.
Mayhem. I had no idea like that was going on. They kind of told us if there is lightning, this this is what we kind of have to do. But I don't think we ever really discussed like I think like if there was lightning in the middle of a match, the match just has to kind of stop. It just is the rules. And but we didn't discuss broadcast wise what was gonna happen. So I didn't know that these interviews were going down. But at one point I was like yelling backstage, in a joking way, but someone's like, hey, we're doing live interviews. So hopefully my voice wasn't heard.
All I kept saying on social media, I thought, where's our truth and 24/7 title when you need them?
Yeah, man.
The time to need them, it was then.
Yes.
Cool. So I suppose we'll swing back to the beginning. I suppose to your childhood. So you growing up, was you a fan growing up, and how did you meet the Harts?
So my cousin, I have a couple older cousins, and one of them introduced me to wrestling, showed me wrestling, and so I thought it was really cool. I don't know if it's just like two separate things that are burned in my brain, or if I really saw this match and I looked at it on YouTube before and seen that the match exists. I just don't know. In my mind, I feel like the first match I saw, or the first match I really remember, is like a Killer Bees versus Demolition match.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And I don't know if that's true or if both teams just happen to be on the same episode that I watched. So, but anyway, I remember it captured my imagination right away. And I went home, and I lived at home at that time with my mom and my two sisters. So I started practicing some of the stuff I saw on TV with my sisters, and wrestling quickly was banned in my house. I wasn't allowed to watch it. I wasn't allowed to anything. And at the time I hadn't fully immersed myself in it. So like it being taken away at that moment wasn't the end of the world, because like I still had Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, He-Man. So I was all right until I got about 10 years old, 11 years old. And then I went to school with Teddy Hart, and we happened to be in the same class. And for whatever weird reason, he took a liking to me, and he kept inviting me to his house, and I kept kind of avoiding it. And then he kept telling me they lived in a gym. And when you're a kid in elementary school, a gym isn't a workout gym. A gym is like a gymnasium. So I thought, like, this kid like lives in a gym where you play basketball. I don't understand. And so finally went to his house one day, and I realized like his dad owned a gym, a workout gym, and they lived in like a little living quarters upstairs, or not a little one, but a living quarters upstairs. And so, and then next thing you know, I went up to Stu's for a Sunday dinner, and here I am now. So that was it. That was it.
And you got into the training. So how long was it till Bret took you under his wing and started training you?
So probably for like 2 years, from like 1990 to like 92, is kind of this like, because I would like spend like the weekends over at their house all the time. And so like Saturday afternoon, Saturday mornings is just like they just watch wrestling is what they did. So then it became what I did. And then just for 2 years, it's kind of like this flame starting to burn a little bit inside. And I'm realizing like how much I like kind of love this thing. And then SummerSlam 92, Bret versus Davey. I've said this a million times, but I didn't know at that time like that a wrestling match could look like that. Yeah. And it absolutely captivated me and like opened my imagination to like even trying to create wrestling moves at 12 years old at that point. And it was funny. It was like I was a fan maybe from like 1990 till 92. And then I don't know what inside of me, but once I watched that SummerSlam match, that's when I knew that I was going to be a wrestler. Literally. And there was no maybe or no B plan, which luckily worked for me, but I don't know if that's the best way to do things, but it did work in my situation.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, the original concept of the show was reviewing 90s pay-per-views, starting off Rumble 90, working our way through. And I've got a petition that Bret Hart should be called Mr. SummerSlam, because up to now we've reviewed SummerSlam 90 and 91, and that 90, great 2 out of 3 falls tag match with Anvil against Demolition. 91, perfect. 92, obviously Bulldog, and then you go into 94 Owen, and 97 Taker in that. I mean, every SummerSlam he always did.
And then even like, I know maybe not in terms of like a typical incredible Bret Hart match, but it's like story wise, like even 93 wrestles Doink and Jerry Lawler, and it makes sense in the story. It's not that typical Bret Hart match, but it's storyline wise, it's pretty strong. And then 95
Isaac Yankem, was it?
Isaac Yankem. I was trying to remember. It's so crazy. I drew a weird blank. I remember like every match on that card. 1, 2, 3 Kid and Hakushi. I think it's Hunter's pay-per-view debut in WWE with Bob Holly.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I drew a funny blank with Isaac Yankem on that one.
Yeah, and even like I think
SummerSlam. Oh my God, that's great. And even 2010, he did awesome in that SummerSlam 2010.
Exactly, and I think it was 88 or 89 match against the Brainbusters. So every SummerSlam he always delivered. So to me, Bret is Mr. SummerSlam.
Oh wow, what a funny thing.
Yeah, it's definitely it should be. So if WWE starts promoting it, I know where it came from.
Yeah.
Cool. So you started training with Bret, and obviously at the Hart House. So you must have a fun.
So we started training a little bit, and then it's funny. We kind of started training a little bit like on our own, just messing around, and then it moved to us. Like then like we kind of had like a little crash course in training, and then we had our first match in. I had my first match in July 1995, and then after that is So then we kept training, and we would now after October 1996. Teddy Hart's brother had passed away in the summer of 1996 from flesh-eating disease. And then in October 1996, we wrestled a WWF live event, October 5th, 1996. And we do a tag match, kind of like a tribute match to Matthew. And after that is like kind of when we get invited to the dungeon. And then Bret hadn't, I don't know if Bret had re-signed yet or he's just about to. This is when he's just about to come back in 96, and he's at that show. And I think when he saw us like wrestle, I remember him coming up to Stu's that summer. I think he started to see that like we were, even though we were kids, I think he started to see that we were a little bit serious about this. And then at that point, that's when he invited us to train at his house. And I remember there was a period of time where Teddy and I were going every day after school and training at Bret's house in that old WWF ring. That felt like a cement block, but it was so thrilling to be in there.
Awesome. And one of the things that happened, I suppose it was a few months after this, was the Canadian Stampede. So was you in the ring at the end?
Owen Hart shirt in that thing. Yeah. Right. Oh my God, man! What an insane reaction! What an awesome crowd! It was perfect timing. I mean, that whole Hart Foundation story, and then combined with like the first off, well, Calgary anyway, but then during the Stampede, which is when Calgary's like electric, and then you had the Hart Foundation. Man, I remember I'm sitting beside Harry in the crowd, we're front row, and can't even speak to each other, can't hear what the other guy's saying, and we're sitting literally right beside each other. It was so loud. I've never, in terms of like a sustained reaction, I've never seen such a loud one for so long. It just was like the whole night, but especially like throughout that entire 10-man tag is just like this like crazy sustained noise at all times. It's wild.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I mean, even the entrances, for Pillman and Davey Boy, Owen and Bret, the entrances are so great.
Laid out thing I've ever seen in terms of wrestling, and just like something so simple. Nobody laid a hand on, like, just the entrance, and it was like so well done. Like come out and wait, and there's little pauses in between each one, and then the big pause before Bret coming out, and that building just starts to shake is unbelievable.
And I mean, one of the great things, what led after this as well, was for the weeks of promos from Owen, it was like hyping Stone Cold Steve Austin and just irritating Stone Cold every week. It was great.
What was the WWE one called? The little the cruise, the Wrestle Vessel.
Something like that, yeah.
So I know there's a WCW one. One was the Wrestle Vessel, one's the Bruise Cruise or something. Anyway, I like a lot of that interview. I think was from that cruise because Owen's on a boat. He keeps just saying I pinned Steve Austin. I pinned Steve Austin, and I'm pretty sure it's from like when the guys would do that cruise, which is funny. What a funny thing.
Oh yeah, it was awesome time. And I mean,
not like now with wrestling one, just like hanging out.
but unfortunately, I suppose this had to end, this fun time had to end because obviously Montreal Screwjob happened. So, where was you when this happened? Was you in the crowd or was you at home?
I was at home. I was at Harry's house, Davey and Diana's house, watching the pay-per-view, and in the moment, didn't really know that something crazy had happened. Just kind of know like, oh, that felt weird, but I don't know, like who know, like at the time I don't know anything until like an hour later when Davey called home, and then that's kind of when the news broke about the fight, and then it was like, oh wow, that's very quite. I mean, watching the show, I mean, I didn't know anything. I didn't know that like Bret was leaving. Like I didn't know anything at that time. I remember reading I think it was like column in the newspaper the day before, and I was like, I that was the first I'd ever heard of him talking about leaving. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah,
I thought it was just like some angle or something.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it as a kid, and I think I must have been 8-year-old when it happened, 97, yeah, about that. And I just thought it was just a match. And then, watching Nitro a few weeks later, and Bret showed up, I thought, what's happening up here?
Because at that time, like, tapping out was still kind of new a little bit in wrestling. So a lot of times when up, it just would look kind of like that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Visually. So, like, obviously, sometimes, they'd be like, Mr. Perfect would be like nodding his head. But when tapping out was like still fairly new in pro wrestling. So it wasn't like we didn't like, it's not like, oh, Bret didn't tap. Like, it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't like the angle out of it as I'm watching. I just thought like, oh, that was weird. Bret lost to the sharpshooter. I'm so confused.
Yeah,
I didn't
definitely.
A whole whirlwind of stuff going on at that time.
Yeah. And during this time, Stampede Wrestling was still a thing. So what was it like working Stampede Wrestling?
It was a lot of fun. It was, it's definitely where it's where a lot of my learning and my learning pains happened. I had made luckily a lot of my mistakes happened there, and I got them out of the way. But that was a lot of fun. It was, they took me under their wing and trained me and took care of me. Bruce Hart and Ross Hart, right from the beginning, and gave me some amazing training in the dungeon. And once in a while, Stu would come down there and stretch us, put us through an assortment of submission holds that all link together. And as each time you think it's about the absolute brink of your threshold of pain, he switches to a different body part. And then like just as like your shoulder starts to feel relief, your neck now is hurting. So it was a good combination of moving throughout your entire body that Stu could somehow master. But yeah, man, it was a great time. And the training in the dungeon and Stampede Wrestling was a lot of fun. I was just a kid and just kind of taking it all in and trying to learn as much as I could and try to get as many. Honestly, even then I knew I wanted to get into as many matches as I possibly could. Even at like 16, 17, 18 years old, I understood that I needed these reps.
Is it something? I mean, obviously, I don't think it's going at the minute, well, especially with COVID. But is it something you would like to bring back yourself personally with Natalia, maybe Harry and such?
In terms of a school,
school, yeah, or promotion itself, I suppose, Stampede itself.
I mean, yeah, it could be fun, but it also can be so strenuous. Like I've worked for so many promoters, and I've seen so many promoters and bookers and stuff, and it's a lot of work. I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it really is until they maybe get into it, and then they realize they're kind of in over their heads for the most part. Usually, obviously, there are some guys that have absolutely mastered that. It's a tough thing. I don't know. I don't think I could. I don't. Especially right now, I just don't. And it's, and I was looking down the road at things eventually getting back to normal. I just don't know that I would have that time. Unfortunately, it would be starting to spread myself a little too thin, and then I think like things start to suffer if I start to do that too much.
Yeah. And so in 99, sadly, Owen passed away, and I've heard you on the Chris Van Fleet interview explain where you was at the time, but I like to try and keep my interviews quite upbeat. So instead of speaking about his death, what's your favourite memory of Owen, and did he ever pull a rib on you?
I mean, not a great one. So Stu had these two phones. He had two phone numbers, two separate phone numbers at his house, and because there was always a business going on at all times, and both phones were set up in the office, and both phones were set up downstairs, and so these phones would just ring all day long. I'm not, and it'd be people asking in like 1993, 94, 95, 96 for Bret, and you get so used to answering these phones all day long. It's fans asking for Bret Hart, who's the WWE champion, and believe it or not, doesn't live at home with his parents as the WWE champion, headlining WrestleMania 10. He, believe it or not, lives on his own with his own family. It's very bizarre. But yeah, so anyway, I remember one time someone calling and asking for Stu, and it was like they're putting on some kind of weird voice, and I was like, okay, yeah, no problem, man, I'll go get Stu. And I had no intentions of getting him. And I was like, I mean, ask who's speaking, and he's like, yeah, it's Walter Payton. And I was like, oh, Walter, wow, man, can't believe you're calling me from your busy schedule. I know you got a SummerSlam appearance. It's crazy that you're calling to talk to Stu. He's like, yeah, if you could just get him, it'd be really good. And we're kind of going back and forth, and like, I have no intention of getting Stu. I'm talking to supposedly Walter Payton, and then it was finally, he stops talking in some weird voice, and it was Owen, and he said, hey, TJ, can you please get my dad? And so this was very small, but like Owen, I spent a decent amount of time with him, a little bit. Like he flew Teddy and I to International Incident. He flew me to WrestleMania 12 as his guest. Like Owen, he was very good to me. He was very, very good to me. I don't have a single bad thing. I mean, it's all great memories if I think of Owen.
Yeah, I've spoke to quite a few wrestlers from that era. Every one of them's always got a fun Owen Hart story. No one's got a bad word to say about him. And I mean, same with Davey Boy. And sadly, he passed away in 2002. And I mean, so you've been on Joe Fo in the ring. I get along with him and our mutual friend Jeremy Prophet. Yeah. But I always feel there's always been a connection between the British and the Canadians. Obviously, what the Commonwealth, but I always feel wrestling's been a big part of it with the Smiths, the Billingtons, and the Harts. And when Davey Boy passed away, it was very sad for everyone. And I knew that you lived with them for a while as well. So what was your favorite memories of Davey Boy?
Oh man, I have way too many. I told this story. Maybe I told it. Maybe it's on the WWE. I told it not too long ago. I have a lot of great memories with Davey. We used to, like I said, I had a lot, like I didn't spend even close to the amount of time with Owen as I did with Davey. Davey and I worked out a lot together, just the two of us. He would help us, Harry, Teddy, myself with wrestling. He gave me multiple pairs of his boots. I mean, man, it's endless. But probably the funniest story, or just like kind of the wackiest, was we were in Spain, and Davey and Diana were staying in a hotel room, and myself, Harry, and Georgia were staying in the room below them, directly below them. And I was down at the pool, and Harry and Georgia came down. But now I'm so used to hotels. At the time, I don't know anything about them, but obviously the doors lock automatically. We know this. Yeah. But Harry and Georgia didn't know this and didn't bring the key. So now our key is locked in there. And the little manager at this hotel already hates us because we keep running into the hotel and back, like from the pool, and we keep getting water everywhere. We're not supposed to. And this guy hates us. Like, we've been there for like 4 days, 5 days. This guy really doesn't like us, I don't think. But our balcony's open.
Yeah.
So Davey gets the idea to tie 2 bed sheets together and lower me from his balcony to our balcony to open the door and get the key. So like in Spain, in Alicante, Spain, Davey's lowering me, or Benidorm or something. He's lowering me from one balcony to the next balcony on like the 6th or 7th floor of this hotel. So like if someone from like the building across the street or something, I'm like, what would they be thinking? It looks like we're breaking. If it's crazy, whatever we're doing, it's crazy. But it looks like we're breaking into a hotel room. Like it's all types, and nothing. No police showed. Nothing ever happened. I don't know. But yeah, he lowered me like some Mission Impossible stuff.
How happy was?
Got me a pair of Nikes for it.
How happy was you that he finally got into the Hall of Fame after a year delay?
So awesome! It was like I see people say this, and I understand where they're coming from. They're like, "Oh, it's about time," but to me, it's not a race. It's not a race. Yeah. It's like, here does everything fit perfectly. It's not a race. We all like. I knew Davey's going to go into the Hall of Fame. Is it in 2010 or is it in 2020? That's all. It's just time. I knew that it was inevitable. But it's very cool that it's like now it has finally officially happened, and I'm very happy for Harry, George, and Diana that they got to be a big part of that and have that moment. And I know it wasn't the usual setting, and that's just the way the world is at this moment. But I thought it was still a beautiful tribute and a very nice, just a great presentation, all things considered. Yeah.
Did you? I don't know if it was before your time when you left, but did you have much interaction with Dynamite?
I never met Dynamite. I was in wrestling for All Star Wrestling, and Robbie Brookside asked me if I wanted him to take me to Dynamite's house because they were friends.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is in 2005, so this is right before. I think Harry maybe kind of connects with Dynamite in maybe 2006 or 2007.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is a little before that, and I just thought with my association with Davey, I didn't want to see Dynamite and have like a bad interaction, and then it kind of ruins like all those Tiger Mask matches that I can watch on YouTube. Like if I meet him and we don't have a good interaction, like I'm not going to watch those matches, and not the same way that I enjoy them today. So I didn't want to chance that, and then later on, Harry ends up connecting with him, and it was very positive. And so I kind of regret that I didn't, but I think in the moment I think I went with the right mindset.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you when we messaged. I spoke to his daughter Bronwyn the other week. I had a lovely chat to her, and that interview will be going out in a couple of weeks. And it was great hearing another side to him, to what you normally hear. And we spoke about his upcoming Dark Side of the Ring episode, which I'm looking forward to watching. So,
yeah.
But yeah, his matches with Tiger Mask. Wow.
Man, those are I think those first ones were like 1978 or 79.
Yeah.
It's you can watch it in 2021 and you're blown away. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, crazy. And so yeah, in 2006, I think I've got this right. So you signed for WWE. So how did it come about?
It's very funny. I wrestle. Well, I'll fast forward, then I'll rewind. But my tryout match with Kofi in Deep South is October 5th, 2006, and that live event match I wrestled for WWF as a kid was October 5th, 1996, so exactly 1 decade before. Myself, Natty, Harry, and Teddy were at WrestleMania 22 in Chicago with Bret when Bret went into the Hall of Fame. Bret brought us in as a guest, and we started talking to Johnny Laurinaitis and Carl DeMarco at that time. And Harry signed a contract that weekend. And then Carl DeMarco just told me due to my size, it'd be a little bit of a process, which is not a big deal. It was nothing new to me. And he just said that let him work on it, and then just to stay busy for the summer. And so I went back to England and did like 9 weeks with Brian Dixon. And then while I was over in England, Carl DeMarco called me and told me my tryout was the first week of October. I was going to do a week at Deep South Wrestling Developmental. And so I was very excited, and he just told me, he said, hey, you got to come in, you just have to out wrestle everyone there. Like, you have to. And I was like, okay. And so I remember, like, at the time I was doing 500 squats a day every single day when I'd wake up.
Wow.
And that tryout with the mindset that I knew I'm not the best wrestler in the world, but the best wrestler in the world is going to have to walk in that room to out wrestle me, because I'm not going to let anyone else out wrestle me. Because if this is what Carl told me my getting hired consists of, then this is what I'm going to do, because this is what I've been doing at that time for 11 years. So just, I don't know. I can be very funny and focus my mind on something and focus solely on like one thing in that time. And I can have that tunnel vision. And I mean, wrestling's definitely that, no doubt.
Yeah. Cool. And I heard a story, I think this was a few months ago. So, former writer Kurt Bauer, and he mentioned that one of the original plans for Mania 22, it was going to be Bret v Vince. And then after this, it was going to lead up to this big family feud storyline. So, it'll be Bret and Anvil with yourself, Harry, Teddy, Natalia, and I also think DiBiase Jr. And you're going to be squaring off against Vince, Shane, Triple H, HBK, and Sean's students, Kendrick, Cade, and Danielson. But by the nod of your head, it's like, yeah, I think this is rumor and innuendo.
I mean, like, first off, I've never, like, no one's obviously ever told me that was a thing, like, officially. But, like, even just, like, you saying it, just imagine that. It'd be crazy. It'd be so crazy. Yeah. You know, it was kind of like the first time that it was bragging rights, and Harry and I were on separate teams opposing DX. I remember like asking them afterwards, like, "Hey, is it possible to like do some extra stuff with you guys in this match? Like, we think there's something there, obviously with us being where we're from and you guys being who you are." And they were very receptive to it, and they're, you know, both guys, but like Shawn Michaels he's been very great to me since my very first dark match. I debuted the next day and he said, "I wrestled Jamie Noble on the Monday in Oakland." And Shawn Michaels pulled me aside, and he's been good to me from the get-go here in WWE. So like, I can't say anything bad about him but I mean, that thing from Court. I'm not saying Court's wrong by any means. He obviously is working in the company at that time. I'm not. I'm at that WrestleMania as Bret, like I said, as Bret's guest, but I'm not under contract at that time. So Core would obviously know way better than me. And I understand sometimes how maybe in these meetings, ideas just get thrown around and kind of feels like they're maybe developing, but then maybe in the end, there's actually no substance to it. I don't know if it's one of those set. Who knows? But I mean, it sounds crazy. I'll say that.
Oh, crazy feud. I would have loved it. Like you squaring off against Danielson and Harry squaring off against Lance Cade. It would have been awesome.
Years later, Brian and I, we had that one singles match where it is when the Bret and Shawn DVD comes out.
Yes.
Like, imagine Brian and I against each other, but with that, like, Court's version, and you have, like, Bret and Shawn, and they're in person, and this is what's at stake. It becomes a very different match.
Yeah, it would have been awesome. And so you formed the new Hart Foundation generation with DiBiase in that, and but before you got called up, I think Teddy got released. So, Teddy? I mean, he's super talented, Teddy Hart, and like he's unreal. But obviously, there's been issues. Do you think sometimes it's a case that, because I think he was signed when he was like 18 or 17. I think for a long time he was the youngest ever signed wrestler. So, do you think it was a case he got too much too soon and he needed to be matured a little bit before he finally got his first contract, or is it a case he's his own worst enemy sometimes?
Maybe, or he just like it's just kind of funny. I don't know if like just I don't know. It's funny because like I'll be around him and everything. Like he'll be great. Like when he was in FCW, it wasn't like you said. It wasn't very very long. It was a few months, but like we did a few tag matches and like they were great. And he was doing great. He just and I get it. I think we all have it a little bit. With Teddy, I think he has it a little bit more intensified than a lot of us when it comes to that. Authority. I think someone tells him something, his natural instinct, even if he knows the person is giving him 100% great advice, his natural instinct is to try to battle it for
Yeah.
some reason. And I think some, not everybody, but I think some of us have a little bit, like I have a little bit of that in me too. I understand where it comes from, but I also I can differentiate when it's like, when it's time to go with it and when it's time to maybe dig my heels in a little bit. And I think that might be the difference. I think he always, his instinct is always to kind of combat authority a little bit. And then I think from there it kind of snowballs. That's what I think. That's in terms of I've been around him since his very first match is in a tag match against me. It's both of our first match. So both our careers have been together. Like a lot of it has been with each other. And this is just what I've witnessed. I don't think a lot of his trouble when it comes to the wrestling world, I don't think a lot of it it's intentional. I think it becomes like maybe an authority thing, and then it kind of snowballs and takes on its own life. That's at least my experiences.
Yeah. And we mentioned you made your debut on ECW, and they put you and Harry together as the Hart Dynasty, which is one of my all-time favorite tag teams. So what was it like being paired up with, obviously you've been paired up with Harry like most of your life, but being paired up with Harry on TV, I suppose you could say.
It was awesome because my very first match is I teamed up with Harry in my very first match. He'd had a match the year before. He wrestled Teddy's brother Matthew, and then so this is my first match is his second match. But my first match is a team with Harry. So then to literally like live that dream out on WWE TV, I mean it writes itself. I don't even have to like it's just crazy that like we had our own little like promotion when we were kids that we would record called the KWA, the Kids Wrestling Association, and like we'd record these little matches where we're wrestling on a crash pad, and then you fast forward 15 years and we're winning the tag team titles on Monday Night Raw in Virginia, and it's like I couldn't have even written that. Like how did that happen? Show me how that happened. I'd like to see all the steps that took place that magically that took place. It was crazy. It was unexplainable. It was a lot of fun. I really liked that tag team. Myself, Harry, and Natty. I thought we all complemented each other really well. Harry obviously he's a big guy. He's 6'5". He's about 260 pounds. I don't know if everyone always realizes how big he is. But Natty was just a great manager for us, and it was actually her pitch to bring the three of us together. We'd been kind of working on it a little bit in FCW, but it was Natty who actually went to Vince finally, and she was on the main roster. Harry at one point had been, but now we're both kind of in FCW. So it's just cool to like I said, the three of us, like honestly, like it sounds so funny, but like traveling all over the world together, the three of us. And like having these matches, like we did a lot of cool things as the Hart Dynasty. Like we teamed up with Bret at MSG for Bret Hart Appreciation Night. We teamed up with Bret on a European tour, the second half of a European tour over in Germany. Did these 6-man tags with Bret against the Nexus. Like that's cool as hell, man. I mean, who else in this generation has teamed with Bret in matches? I'll tell you, the answer is nobody. It's nobody. It's myself and Harry. That's it.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of Bret being back in WWE, so from what I've heard, you're the guy who put the wheels in place. So was it the case? I think you were speaking to Sean, and I think you said to Sean, like, he wants to speak to you. Was it something like that? Because I know that you was one of the main people.
Yeah, so Sean, like I said, he kept pulling me aside, and he was very complimentary and very cool, and literally for like 3 weeks in a row, and then he pulled me aside like the third week we were in Nashville, and he was talking to me, and then at one point, like in my first like 1 or 2 weeks since I debuted, Bret called me, and he just was like giving me his critique, and he was asking me like who's kind of like, has anyone give me advice and what are they saying? And so I said, yeah, I said, Sean pulled me aside instantly and said, Sean been so cool from the beginning. And he's like, really? I said, yeah. And we had a long talk about that one wasn't a super long talk. We just had a kind of a brief talk, but he said, Bret and I've had a lot of talks about but just a lot of talks in general, but a lot of talks about Sean in the past, where he's like told me that obviously, you know, what he thinks of Sean in terms of his ability and how that he thinks he's a great wrestler. All personal things aside. So now Sean pulls me aside in Nashville and we're talking, and I just mentioned, hey, I said, like, Brett asked me which people have been kind of giving me advice. I said, I told him you have, and I just want you to know that he's like, when people aren't trying to, you know, stroke the fire a little bit, I said, you know, he is a fan of yours. Especially, like, I mean, no one can ever say that Shawn Michaels is not a great wrestler.
Oh,
no one can ever.
No.
Some personally or you don't. You can never say that. It'd be silly. You can't say that. Just like you can't say Bret, whether you like Bret or not, you can never say Bret wasn't an amazing wrestler. You can't say that. So then I think Natty had mentioned it to Bret, and then he and I had like a very long talk. He called me and asked me about the conversation, and we just kind of talked a lot back and forth. And then at WrestleMania 25, when Shawn and Undertaker had that amazing match, I followed Shawn to the locker room, and then I gave him Bret's number that day, and then he called later, like way later on. But that was kind of the start of that. But the truth is, those two had to see each other face to face. It's just that was too big of a thing, and they're both just too talented that I think they had to see each other face to face. Man, they couldn't talk that one out over the phone.
Yeah, I mean, they've you know, they met in the ring, but their DVD is one of my favorite documentaries I've watched. When I sat down with Jim Ross, it's such a great interview.
It's very cool.
Cool. And I mean, it led up to WrestleMania 26, Bret v. Vince. So, how did it feel beating up Vince McMahon? It seemed like you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Yep. I remember going over it, and I remember him asking me if I've ever done. He asked me if we ever did the heart attack to the floor, and I was like, yeah, of course I have. I'd never done it to the floor. When would I have done it to the floor? If I'd done it, he would have seen it. It would have been on TV. I wouldn't have done it at a live event, I don't think. I mean, who knows? But anyway, I was like, oh yeah, of course. And I was thinking in my head, like, the thing that's gonna break my fall is that I have to like nail him. And but to Vince's credit, right before, he's like, hey, you better hit me. And I was like, done, no problem. I have to. It's going to be what breaks my fall. So unfortunately, I have to. And his head bounced pretty good off the mat.
Cool. And with this, led to the big babyface turn, and like you mentioned, Hughes winning the belts, which was a great moment against Showmiz. And he's had a really reign. It was so much fun, but they decided to break Hughes up, and I've got no idea why, TJ. I mean, Hughes were the top tag team in the division, and Hughes were a tag team you could go for a long time. So why did you break up?
So that was my pitch to break up, but it's because I kind of saw I felt I saw the writing on the wall. I kind of saw that, like, I knew we were losing the tag titles, which is fine. Like, the second you win a title, you got to know that you're losing it too. So I knew we were losing the tag titles, and I figured, like, we've been heels and we've been baby faces already, so what more can we really do? I was like, man, I think, like, to kind of preserve our tag team rather than just, like, now we just start losing all these matches after I thought we've put in a lot of good work for a year and a half. I was like, let's wrestle each other, because I already know what kind of chemistry Harry and I have. So I was like, let's wrestle each other. Let's kind of keep this tag team somewhat pristine. Let's not run this thing into the ground. Let's. And I remember calling Harry and asking him. I said, hey man, I said, here's the thing. I think we're losing the titles. I said, that's not a problem. I'm not mad about it. It's business. That's cool. I said, but now we just got to think the next step. I said, my next step is this. I think we should break up. I think we should wrestle each other. And he said, yeah, I love our matches. I said, okay, me too. I said, which do you prefer? Do you want to be a babyface or a heel? And he thought that he made for a better babyface. And I was like, okay, no problem. And then Night of Champions, that's the day we lose the tag titles in Chicago. And I talked to Vince and kind of pitched him this whole thing. didn't quite go exactly how I pitched it, but it took some elements of it. And then like the cool thing was, like, for example, is like Harry and I we had a singles match at MSG, which like that's where Bret and Owen also, I know it's WrestleMania, but Bret and Owen had a singles match. Bret and Jim have had a singles match at MSG. So like Harry and I have a singles match at MSG, and we team with Bret at MSG. So like we kind of have some cool moments that, like, I remember after we had that match, I said, hey, here's the thing. No matter whatever happens in our careers, no one can ever take this match away from us. I remember Vince was there that day, and Johnny came up to us after the match and told us that Vince really, really liked the match and thought like we put on a hell of a match. So, and I mean, MSG is like, that's WWE's, you know, that's our home arena. So that was a great feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, so you done the storyline having some managers after this, but with Harry, he wasn't being used as much, and eventually got released. But there's been a lot of rumors online for you might be returning. So is there anything you can tell us?
I don't know anything like official. I've said it in interviews before. He's been gone for a decade. I've been trying to get him to come back like this entire time. This isn't some new thing of mine trying to get him to come back. I've been trying to get him back this whole time. I think Harry's changed a lot in the last 10 years. And I think WWE's changed a lot in the last 10 years. And I think hopefully both will be happily surprised to see how much the other has changed. And I hope that it goes down. Hopefully the pandemic has forced Harry's hand.
Yeah. Cool.
That's how I'm looking at it.
Oh, I can't wait. But yeah, and we mentioned the Manchester storyline, and one thing I want to talk about, whatever happened to Jackson Andrews? Because he was like your Diesel for like a couple of weeks. Whatever happened to him?
Man, I don't know. Actually, funny enough, that MSG, it was the day after Christmas, and it was a crazy blizzard, and he wasn't able to make it to that show.
Right.
And the next day that was a Sunday, and the next day we have Raw in Albany, New York, which is like a 2.5 hour drive, but it was a wild blizzard. It took us like 7.5 hours to get to Albany. Got in at like 7 a.m. It was nuts. And the next day I show up at TV, and then my producer told me that I was that I was losing my bodyguard, and I was like, it's only been like 3 weeks, man. Like, this is not good. And he said, no, based off your match yesterday at MSG with Harry, Vince feels like you can get heat on your own. You don't need a guy. It's like, okay, but I mean, sure. But then I end up, just like you said, like I end up doing my, like I start mostly wrestling on Superstars main event, which is fine. I don't mind. They gave me a lot of great opponents. Like I wrestled Trent Beretta every other week at one point, and I'll take it every day of the week. So that part's easy. But like I wish we could have tried the Jackson Andrews stuff a little bit longer and just kind of, you know, seen where it had gone. I just remember like we finished that Christmas loop, and I think they told him he was going to go back to FCW. And I think what he didn't know was like behind the scenes, their plan was to try to get him like ring ready for like the next European tour, which would have been like in April, and this is December, so 3 months. But he quit. He never showed back up at FCW. I think he just took it as like they're like, I'm just gonna get messed with or whatever, or he just maybe thought like, oh, that was my run and I'm out.
Right, cool. And you mentioned you was on main event and Superstars, and I mean you had some great matches, like we said, against Trent, and you wrestled Mysterio and Sin Cara, and that's just. But one of my favorite things you did do was go to NXT, and you had that really good feud with Curtis Axel, where talk about generations. He's saying to you, "You're not a real Hart," and you had a rubber match at the end, and you got him in the dungeon lock. So, what was like working that program?
We had a lot of fun, and it was we knew we had good chemistry because we'd wrestled a few times in FCW, and of course, I think everybody who's like in wrestling is a super fan of Axel's dad.
Oh yeah.
And you know, all of us in FCW were big fans of his dad. So like once when Joe came in, when Curtis Axel came in, everybody wanted to like him right away because everybody is like a fan of his dad's, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy. We're very good friends. I think he's very, very talented. I really enjoyed our matches. I thought we had very hard-hitting matches and very physical matches, and it was cool because he kind of allowed me to lead, but he more than had his held up everything in his end, and he was so fun to wrestle. Like we wrestled the main event of the first NXT at Full Sail. It's me against him. And I'm very proud of that match. And I always enjoyed our matches. He was cool, and it was cool because he was like, I remember when it first started, and he was like, hey man, he's like, who knows what even this is, but he said, if you don't mind me saying all these things, we can maybe make this kind of like, maybe if we make it so personal. And I was like, man, I mean, dude, say whatever you want to say. It doesn't bother me. I know what kind of person you are. So say whatever you want. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I promise you. If I know you're my friend, then it's fine. Not a problem.
Yeah, great series of matches. And speaking about great, you started tagging with Cesaro, and such an awesome tag team. And I loved the skits you were doing. Like Natalia was inviting you to the dinner, and you decided to invite Cesaro along with you. It looked like it was so much fun filming them.
That little restaurant one is one of my favorites because there's so much like backstory to it. Like we filmed that thing, and in the meeting, what the writer told me is that he's totally justified in thinking this, especially at that time. I understand, but in the meeting, I guess Vince thought like, I'm not like TJ can't deliver. Like it's not going to be very good. This skit is not going to be, this little backstage is not going to be very good. And he said, maybe it'll air on, maybe at that time, Main Event is live on the network.
Right.
And he's like, we'll air it on Main Event. And if it's good enough, like maybe we'll like replay it on SmackDown. I'm like, okay. I remember it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. Now it was on, but those were kind of the. So anyway, we did it one take. Vince really liked it, but he wanted the people in the background to react a different way. So we did one more take. He saw it, he loved it, so it aired on Main Event. It aired that week on SmackDown. They replayed it again on Raw. They may have replayed it again on SmackDown, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going too far, but they may have even replayed it at the pay-per-view at Fastlane. So this thing that was like, well, it's probably not going to see the light of day, but we'll try it out. It definitely got its fair share. That backstage got, and I mean, Cesaro, punching the hell out of Jimmy Uso probably what really sent it over the top for us. That punch was in there. That Jimmy and I talk about that one all the time.
Cool. And you went on to win the tag belts as well. So, I mean, it was a short-lived tag team, obviously, for obvious reasons. But how much fun did you have, like, tagging with Cesaro and being champions?
The most amazing amount of fun. And I said this on the bump, and like they tried to put me on the spot, and they asked me because they had Cesaro via satellite, and they had Harry there in person, and they tried to ask me which tag team I like better, and I was like, okay. First off, secondly, here's the thing. I'm a way better and way more complete performer in 2015 than I am in 2010. In 2009, 2010, I'm brand new on the main roster. I'm kind of figuring myself out on the main roster. By 2015, I don't have it all figured out, but I have a much better clue than I did in 5 years prior. And so I'm just a different performer when I'm teaming with Cesaro than I was with Harry. So like if I look at it that way, I kind of let Harry down a little bit. That's just life. That's just progression. It's what you're supposed to get better. You're not supposed to stagnate. You're not supposed to get worse. But yeah, the stuff with Cesaro, I don't know. It just was literally like magic in a bottle. We did that triple threat with Dolph in Liverpool and on SmackDown, and I'm very proud of that match. Very proud of it. And 3 weeks later, Cesaro and I are in a tag match, in a tag team gauntlet match. And I only knew because I saw it tweeted. There was a graphic, and everybody else was a tag team in the graphic except for me and him. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess me and Cesaro are a tag team today is what I thought. At that point, I was kind of like managing Natty a little. I would have matches, but I was like kind of managing Natty and doing like Natty against Nikki Bella, and I like catch Nikki when she gets knocked up. Like I'm doing this weird stuff in Natty's matches, and then all of a sudden I'm teaming with Cesaro, and I knew that we had chemistry based on that triple. Well, I mean, I already knew because I'd wrestled him before, but based on that triple threat 3 weeks prior, it was like really fresh in my mind. And I think we just kind of capitalized off that same chemistry right off the bat and put it in a tag team situation rather than as opponents.
Yeah. How do you feel about seeing Cesaro finally get this main event push? Looks like it's going to be him and Roman. It's something the fans have been crying out for a long time.
Love it. I said in an interview, someone asked me before, maybe a year ago, about Cesaro and if he could be champion. And I said, of course he can. I used to say this, and I still say it. I say it to myself as a talent. I don't need to say it to myself anymore. But every Monday could be your Monday. Every Friday could be your Friday. Just because you're not booked this Monday doesn't mean next Monday isn't the start of you being booked and the start of something huge happening. For example, and this is a story I always tell, but like I remember on a Monday talking to Jamie Noble for SmackDown the next day, and I remember saying to Jamie, like I saw a graphic, it was a Superstars, and I saw it was like me against somebody, JTG or somebody, and I just said like, hey Jamie, is it possible to get it switched to Trent? If it is, cool. If not, it's cool. Like, I have no problem with JTG, but I just wanted to wrestle Trent. So anyway, the next day, Tuesday, he's in the meeting, he's texting me, and he's like, hey, I got to change to you versus Trent, and I'm working out. I said, thanks, man, I really appreciate it. Then Jamie Noble texts me like 10 minutes later, he said, actually, big change. I think you're in Money in the Bank. And then I wrestled Swagger that day, and I qualified for Money in the Bank. And that's where I say, like, so I showed up. Like, the Tuesday before was not my Tuesday. I showed up that Tuesday. That was my Tuesday. I qualified for Money in the Bank. And then the next week on Raw, I'm wrestling Tenzai. And I think Tenzai had been on, like, he's on a hell of a roll at that point. I think maybe Cena had beat him or Punk had beat him. One of the two beat him. Like that, like ended his, and then I beat him. That's it. But before that, he's beaten Punk and Cena or something like that. I can't 100% remember it. He's pretty fresh at that time, and so it became my Tuesday, and it gave me this little platform, and I later found out that's what started my whole. So my NXT match with Axel is what kind of led to the Money in the Bank match, which then almost all comes full circle and leads back to NXT after my knee surgery.
Yeah. Cool. And I mean, obviously, you suffered your career-ending injury, and I mean, you've told it so many times, but it was such devastating. When I first heard the news, I was like, not Tyson, it can't be. And when I saw it, because I mean, Joe, like obviously we've seen him in TNA hit the muscle buster so many times. So I don't know if you remember what happened, but what happened? What caused obviously the injury?
I'm not entirely sure what in terms of like physically, but I think it just happened to be one of those like perfect storms where I don't know. I honestly, like, there's just a lot of things that kind of went into that day that I don't know, like almost supernatural. And but I do know this. I do know that whatever did happen was out of Joe's hands. It was, but I mean, in terms of like, there was no malice. There was not. I never for 1 second thought it was anything even somewhat it was a complete accident that just go down that day in San Antonio, and it was really, really unfortunate at that time that it went down like that. But then my first day as a producer was in LA, and the first guy I went and found when I got out of that first production meeting I went and found Joe. And he came to the hospital the night I got hurt, and he and I would text during the whole time I was away. But I wanted to find him and talk to him in person. Like, he was like the first guy I really wanted to kind of find that day. And we had a very good talk, and we, even like to this day we're friends. We get along great. I just, that day was a bad day. It was a perfect storm of things, I think. And I honestly couldn't really pinpoint exactly why it happened that day.
Yeah. And something I want to talk about before we go. So you spot on the top Workhorse Fitness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've transformed yourself. It seems like you're in the best shape you've ever been. So how has it been, like Workhorse Fitness?
So what I've realized over this last year is that I'm having like the best workouts of my life training in this garage in this Florida heat. Even in January, my whole thing was I thought I always loved the gym atmosphere and I thought I loved the sauna. And I was like, once gyms closed, and I was forced to kind of have to make my own or get my own stuff delivered. I can't make anything. I can barely draw a stick, man. So, yeah, man, I'm having the best workouts of my life. Just it's so hot, and I didn't realize like I used to work out and I go in the sauna for like 15 minutes after a workout. Now I'm basically in a sauna the whole workout. So
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah, it's awesome. And Workhorse, I want to put out the best supplements using the best ingredients. So I found a distribution company that they have like a list of like every ingredient available in the supplement world, and they have them kind of listed in tiers. There's like group 1 and it's all like elite stuff. 2 is like still pretty good, and 3 is like still good, but it's kind of like run of the mill. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I pick everything like tier 1? And they're like, well, because then the cost, like the money that come in, like it goes down a little bit. And I was like, yeah, but it's a much better product. Yeah. So I don't know. I prefer premium ingredients. That's what I prefer. I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So that's what I try to put in my supplements is I try to just use that top tier and kind of tinker with different things. And these people that we work with are really good in terms of like just coming up with cool merch or just a lot of cool ideas, and a lot of they're just very helpful because they do this for so many companies that they kind of like help me with the process. So it's been a lot of fun and a really cool thing to sink my teeth into and a cool learning experience.
Awesome. It's something I'm going to need to look at because lately people keep saying, in fact, when they watch my videos, they keep thinking I'm Conrad Thompson. So yeah, I think I'm going to need to trim down a little bit.
Actually, I'm not. I mean, that's the Podfather.
Oh, if I had his audience, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's a it's a compliment. I've actually never met Conrad. We're buddies, but I've never actually like met him. Not yet.
All right, cool.
I've seen him I remember TV in Brooklyn, but he was sitting in the stands like in the day, and I was busy, so I was like, oh, I'll run into him, but I just didn't.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to meet him myself one day and see if there's any words of wisdom. Cool. So before we go, have you got a quick 5 minutes for some fan questions?
Yeah, of course. Yep. Let's do it.
Cool. So I went to Twitter. So first question from the Demo God 1. What's Vince's thoughts on Karrion Kross?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think I would assume Vince obviously, has a knowledge of NXT, but I think with Vince, it's kind of what's in front of his face is what he's going to tackle. So obviously it's Raw and SmackDown every week, and I'm sure he has a clue of Karrion Kross, obviously, and knows who he is, but he obviously doesn't have his hooks in him yet to sink his teeth into him a little bit. But I'm sure he'd be a fan of his. I think Karrion Kross, I think he's been very impressive in his time in NXT so far.
Yeah, I mean, when I watch him, to me, he screams out WrestleMania main event, and he's
that entrance alone. Like, all right, like that very first time I saw it, it's like, all right, I'm in. Like, whatever comes next, like, it's good. I'm in. So.
Yeah. Cool. The same guy also asked, which wrestler not signed by WWE would you like to see in WWE?
So I'm biased. I have a couple friends that I trained before or trained with that I would love to see them signed. Michael Richard Blaze, he wrestles up in Calgary or up in Edmonton, but back in Alberta. He's extremely talented. I trained him when he was just a kid, but he's given me match ideas like when I was a talent all the time. I'd like run my stuff by him when I would get stuck, and he might have that idea that kind of unlocks me or helps me out. Another guy is Jason Kidd, very good friend of mine down here in Florida. Hell of a talent, hell of a coach. I mean, not to take anything away from his ability, but he's a hell of a coach, and he's really good at helping everybody come up with stuff. Like he's really helped me at my dungeon now. He's really helped everybody. Like he really has.
Cool. And also our mutual friend Jeremy Prophet one day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Shit. Hell yeah.
Cool. At WrestleOps asks, what's your favorite match you've produced?
Damn. It's hard to go against that Sasha Bianca match. Yeah. But then that I'm very proud of that tag title match the very next day too. 26,000 fans chanting for Tamina. Tamina's a very, very good friend of mine. I don't know. I think she might have been signed for like 2 or 3 months and then got called up with the Usos. So she was literally just thrown into the deep end. And she did great. And, I'd work with them 3 or 4 nights a week, every week. So I'm very familiar with, I would kind of help her out on the road in terms of at the ring and stuff. So, man, that and another match that I'm very, very proud of is, a lot, to be honest. Like, I'm blown away by the girls, by the women of WWE. I'm blown away by them. I'm really in awe of them, all the time. They surprise me all the time. And just when I think like, okay, like, I get it. These guys are that good. I get it now. They still surprise me. And take it another level, all of them across the board. Like, they're so cool to be around, and they just how hard they want to work. And another one would be Sasha and Bailey against Nia and Shayna when Bailey turns on Sasha after. I'm very proud of that match. I love that match. There's so many twists throughout the entire thing that it just was cool. It just was a different version of a traditional, or like a different take on tag team wrestling that I really, really love that match.
Cool. And last two. So one from official FAF. He's curious, is there any guys up and coming to the roster who you wish you could have faced?
Oh, man, come on. That's so many. Ricochet, Tozawa. Like, I look at Tozawa and I just think like all the, like on those it might sound like it's like zero ambition at all, but like I just look at Tozawa and think like, man, if I was booked against him on main event and we had a little bit of time, like I would love to tear it down with this guy. I'd obviously love to do it on a pay-per-view or on Raw, but if it's only on main event, I'd love to tear it down. I think Tozawa is very talented. Ricochet. So many guys. Gable's always the one I always go to. Gable and Jason Jordan started heating up right as I got hurt. And I looked at them, I looked at that tag team, and I was like, oh my God, what perfect foil against myself and Cesaro than Team Alpha, than Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. Like I thought it would have been a great dynamic, the two teams. And I would love to have wrestled Jason Jordan, Chad Gable. Roman is another guy. One of the first Shield beatdowns, like it was a dark match. Shield beat me up, hit me at the power bomb, so I always kind of counted that. But I would like to have wrestled Roman in a match. I'm trying to think who's. All those guys. Roddy, we're friends. Yeah. I've never met him. Adam Cole, all those guys. Kyle O'Reilly, I've known since 2005. He's like young. Yeah. I've never wrestled him, and I think he's super talented. So honestly, everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. Cool. Last one from myself, and I always ask it of everyone who shared the locker room with him. Favorite John Cena story?
Favorite John Cena story? I'm trying to think. I have a few. We're friends. I'm just trying to think what good ones I have of Cena. Cena and Hornswoggle bouncing me around at Royal Rumble is pretty funny. But I'm trying to think. you know, like it was very cool. He was in Gorilla after we lost the tag titles to the New Day. It was in Chicago. I lost both my tag titles in that same building. But I remember he's in Gorilla and he was like, hey, he pulled Cesaro on his side and he said like, hey, that was a very good tag match. He's like, you guys have done a great job. And I said, well, to everybody. He goes, yeah. I remember for whatever reason in that moment, his praise was really like aimed at me and Cesaro specifically. And he said, no, he said, I understand, but he said, you two have really like over the, you know, but it was just in that moment because you got to think of the Usos at that time. And he just was like, man, you guys have really brought up the tag division. And he just talked it. Like, I remember he loved that match, that Extreme Rules match. Extreme Rules? Yeah, Extreme Rules. I get confused. Payback's the 2 out of 3 falls. He loved it. I remember he loved that Extreme Rules match and was like, he had a lot of praise for us and was like, another one would be when I wrestle Cena and Bryan in London and those dudes slide in the ring and do some YouTube thing and they do like a rock bottom and the guy counts 3 and I'm just like I looked over to make sure Natty was safe and I was thinking like not for nothing but it's like me, Cesaro, Bryan, Cena. I don't know if this is the right group to slide in the ring on.
Yeah.
I looked over and he just kind of like shook his head and because he just was his mindset was like obviously it's a different era but he was like they're doing their own thing, just let security, they're not hurting us, let security take care of it. And he's right, and so that's the thing, like Cena's the leader and he usually whatever weird reason, man, whenever you kind of have those leaders they somehow always know the right answer. So I just remember looking at Cena and he kind of shook his head and I was like, okay, I guess we follow John's lead and just let them do their thing, it's fine.
Awesome. Well, TJ, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. It's something I've wanted to speak to for a long time, and hopefully we can do this again. But before we do, go tell everyone where they can find you on social media. I'm
on Instagram at TJ Wilson 711. That's my birthday. I couldn't get at TJ Wilson. I have it on Twitter, but I couldn't get it on Instagram. And then at Workhorse Fitness Products is also on Instagram, and I think it's at Workhorse Fit on Twitter, but it's more active on Instagram than Twitter for the Workhorse Fitness. That's pretty much where you can find me.
Awesome. So yeah, TJ, thanks for coming on. Yeah, hopefully you can do this again one day. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this interview. Hope you enjoyed it. And as for announcement for next week's interview, so next week we've got one of the biggest faces of wrestling from all time. Changed the face of wrestling itself in the 90s. We're talking about the one and only Eric Bischoff. Had a great chat to Eric. We spoke about him joining WCW, the formation of the NWO, signing Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, persuading Hulk Hogan to join the group, and how they took the wrestling world by storm. So many great stories, and his thoughts on today's wrestling. And if you did enjoy this interview and you're looking forward to next week's, if you hit the subscribe button, it really does help the channel out. You can do that on YouTube, or you can do it on whichever podcast platform you listen on. And if you could also give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform, or if you can give us a like on YouTube and a comment, that'd be great. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.